Alright, non-resident trained course equipment operator, basic Navedtra Navedtra 14081. Chapter 2, Powertrain. The heart of the powertrain is the internal combustion engine for the power required for the motor of the vehicle. Out of the task of the main motor, the friction with the power transmission out of the driveline component with the makeup of the powertrain with the chapter cover the basic principle of the manual automatic transmission propeller shaft assembly final drive. The transmission power to the engine provided with the torque required for the transmission overcome and narrow the proper with the manner which maintains the rest of the uniform motion with the straight line unless the actuated upon the external force. In this case, the narrow the vehicle the rest of the overcome the external force of the engine power the form of the torque. Once the vehicle is moving, the acceleration begins with the increase. The very little torque is then required. The bigger the load of the engine, the bigger the more the efficient the transmission must be. With whenever the vehicle gains the desired speed, move it along with very little effort until something is encountered. Surface the grade of the road, increase the resistance of the movement of the non-torque required for the begin with the operator for the head selected for the power gear, lower gear. The transmission figure 2.2 provides the mechanical advantage that enable the engine to move with the vehicle to allow the operator to control the power of the speed of the vehicle to allow the disengage, reversing the flow of the power engine with to the wheels by the means of the clutch. Shows the figure 2.1 typical powertrains, axle shaft, differential case, universal joints, axle housing, power propeller shaft, the universal joint transmission, propeller shaft, center support bearing, and the clutch, transmission and the clutch. The clutch engages disengage with the engine crankshaft at the front of the transmission. The rest of the powertrain engine with the power load must be applied with slowly to smooth the engagement with the lessen the shock of the driving the driven part of the after the engagement clutch must be transmitted the engine power of the transmission without slipping. Additional engine must be disconnected with the powertrain in order to shift the gears. Alright, your typical manual shift transmission. Gear shift lever to the engine, second and third speed shifter, the second and third speed shifter, the fork lug end, the shifter stem shaft, the shaft shift lock ball, companion flange, the main shaft bearing seal, the counter shaft rear end bearing, main shaft counter shaft transmission case, the counter shaft the front bearing, main shaft front bearing, clutch release yoke, the inlet of the clutch housing input shaft bearing. Clutches transmit with the power to the clutch driving the member of the driving member, the friction the disc clutch with the driving figure 2.3 with the driving plate steer with the engine flywheel, the gradually contact with the driving member attached for the transmission input shaft. The contact is made with the held by the stronger spring press for the control of the operated clutch pedal with the figure 2.4. The only light spring of the pressure will eliminate the friction with the two members of the clutch and therefore do not use the clutch pedal as the foot rests. As the spring pressure then increase the friction also increase the less slippage occurs when the operator foot is removed from the clutch pedal with the full spring of the pressure that's applied with the speed with the driving plate when the driving disc and the same as all slipping stops. The flywheel and the transmission input with the shaft are then connected. Improper adjustment can damage the run of the clutch show with the proper field with the free travel the linkage. Several cut in figure 1.25 several clutches trouble that may occur during the vehicle. The operation should be disconnected, documented, turned in before making the damage occur. The troubles include the incorrect free travel, the slipping, shattering, grabbing, the engaging, slipping, spinning, and dragging with engaged clutch noises. Manual transmission. The transmission located at the rear of the engine between the clutch housing and the proper propeller shaft. Transmission for the transfer of the engine power with the clutch shaft, the proper propeller shaft that allow for the engine to operate with the chain with the gear ratio between the engine and the rear of the wheels. 2.3 show for the cross section of the disc clutch. Show the engine crankshaft, the pilot bearing, flywheel, the clutch driving plate, the facing with the clutch driver plate, spring, clutch cover, and the release sleeve, the release shoe, and the bearing housing. The dual ratio of the two-speed rear axle speed off in the truck with the two-gear ratio of the tube and the operator with the usually manual control level. The dual ratio rear axle works with the same auxiliary transmission, double the number of the gear ratio, the driven of the vehicle under various loads of the different roads. The most common transmission type of the synchro mesh transmission. Synchro mesh the transmission is basically constant mesh collar shift the transmission for the extra device called the synchronizer. They equalize the speed with the remaining with the parts before engaging the synchronizer. Even the all manual automotive transmission is common with the other equipment that will shifting move with the required parts of the pre-start operation for the check with the fluid with the level of the manual transmission, normal level of lubricating, usually bottom of the filler plug opening with lubricant is named with you should always check with the operator's manual location type of lubricant required for the transmission. When you keep the lubricating level correct, the gear teeth are protected with the free foam is reduced and the transmission runs smoothly. Some transmission trouble that you've encountered most documents is follow the hard shifting, slipping out of the gear, no power through the transmission noise due in the gear clashing, and the shifting and oil leaks. 2.4 show the disc clutch operation. The clutch pedal down the shaft now turning, the clutch pedal disc and plate disengage, the flywheel shaft turning, the shaft turning, flywheel clutch disc plate with the flywheel, the clutch pedal pedal up, and the shaft turning. Clutch linkage, the free 1.5 to 1.5 inches clutch linkage, the manual shifting operation. skill in manual shifting requirement, the professional driver, the poor manual shifting result of the poor vehicle performance can cover the vehicle damage. Know the gear shifting lever position so that when you shift the gear without looking at the shifting lever, the gear shifting pattern is usually diagrammed in the vehicle. The operator's manual never move the gear shifter lever from one position to another while the engine is running until you have fully depressed the clutch pedal with the left foot to shift the gear smoothly with the quietly. You must keep the pedal with the fully depressed until the shift is completed. You understand that the clutch provides the means of applying the engine to power the wheel for the smoothly gradually the professional operator. You must learn where the clutch is start with engage, how with the pedal must move with the pedal, become the fully engaged in the how the free play with the pedal, with how the fastest you should engage the clutch. Keep your foot off the clutch pedal except with the actual starting of the shop and the shifting gears, even though the slight constant pressure for the clutch pedal with the excessive wear from the same reason with the stop of the hill. Never slip your clutch to the keep from the rolling backward. Instead, use the brakes. Depress the clutch plate pedal with the shift of the transmission shift lever than the neutral while waiting for a long traffic light. When halted with the other reasons, release the clutch after shifting neutral. When slowing with the vehicle, to stop to make a turn, reduce the speed with the vehicle to 15 miles per hour with the loose and depressing the clutch pedal, coasting the vehicle with the highest rate of speed with the closed pedal. Depresses dangerously. Depresses dangerous because of the control and becomes very more difficult to damage the clutch. May occur, but this kind of practice is abusive to the vehicle. Alright, your clutch shifting. After the pre-start of the operation performed, you have acquainted with yourself with the instrument control of the vehicle, the warming of the engine, the transmission, neutral start of the vehicle, moving the transmission in low first gear, by following these steps. Press the clutch pedal, shift the low gear, check with the radius, and check with the blind spot, give it the signals as required. Let the clutch pedal up slowly, pausing at the friction point. When you feel the taking hold again, recheck with the mirrors and the traffic, check with the parking brake, slowly release the clutch pedal, and at the same time slightly depress the accelerator when the driving operation under the way with the move of the left foot completely of the clutch pedal. Double clutch shifting. The professional driving practice with the 1.5 times larger require the double clutching to permit the proper engagement. The gear to prevent loss movement, to shift the lower gear with the double clutching, follow these steps. Relieve the gear pressure for the accelerator by depressing the clutch pedal. When the clutch pedal is fully depressed, move the gear shift to the level of the neutral. Release the clutch pedal at the same time to depress the accelerator to the speed of the engine. Let up the accelerator, depress the pedal, clutch pedal, while the accelerator is depressed, move the gear shift lever to the next lever, the lower gear. Release the clutch pedal at the same time to depress the accelerator, maintain the engine speed with the lower of the engine again, contained with the engine engagement of the clutch. Procedures is the same for shifting and higher gear with except for the engine is not accelerated when the transmission is in neutral. Caution: when you're shifting gear to the rough terrain without high wheels, never let your vehicle slow down to the point where the engine begins to labor or jerk. Before shifting the lower gear ratio, always anticipate the need for the extra power shifting gears accordingly. When descending with a hill with or without heavy cargo load, always drive with your vehicle on the gear or clutch pedal out. You're encountering vehicles that may have the more complicated transmissions of the multiple gear range, dual speed axles, or other special feature of the operative reading and understanding the operator's manual in the particular vehicle before attempting to operate. Your automatic transmission. The automatic transmission, like manual with the transmission, is designed matched with the requirements of the vehicle operated with the speed range engine. However, the automatic transmission, figure 2.6, performs automatically depending on the throttle of the position. When a vehicle, the speed, the position, and the shift of the control level of the automatic transmission from manufactured models, they have 2 or 3 or 4 more forward, 2 to 8 speed. Some of their equipped with the one drive, the control is limited with the selection of the gear range of the moving control lever. Part of the pre-start engine operation with a check with the transmission fluids level and the engine idle with the normal operation with the vehicle's level with the transmission control level. Then part with the transmission fluid is due to the combination of the transmission medium hydraulic control fluid and heat transfer medium with the bearing surface the lubricating gear. Lubricating manufacturer recommendations must be followed for everything filling the transmission fluid. Caution: not overflow of the transmission. Overflowing causes the foaming of the shifting of the trouble. Some of the transmission trouble doesn't cover the most of the documents follow with no drive in selected position. On standstill start of the engine accelerates, but vehicle movement lags. Engine speed accelerates during the upshift of the transmission will not upshift the downshift the harsh. Vehicle creeps too much in the drive. The vehicle creeps in the position. The improper shift, the unleashable transmission leak, noise, and oil leaks. Alright, fluid couplings. In the past, fluid couplings were widely used with the automatic transmission. Fluid couplings act like the automatic clutch by slipping the idle in the holding the increase the power with the engine speed, increase the mechanical connection between the engine and transmission power is transmitted by the oil. Automatic transmission, starting from the top: turbine, stator, impeller, oil pump, the front clutch, the rear clutch, front planetary gear, rear planetary gear, low reverse band, overrunning clutch, governor, bearing, output shaft, seal, bushing, steering housing, speedometer, pinion, parking, lock, assembly, valve, body, slung gear, driving shell, oil filter, kickdown band, input shaft, flexible drive plate, engine crankshaft. The principal fluid drive in figure and showing 2-7 of the two fans, each with a speed rotation fan makes the other fan rotate the speed of the one of the fans changed from medium to low. The power is lost with the speed. Power is lost at low speed, but if the fan speed increases the medium with the high speed of the drive and picks up the torque converter. Your torque converter is form of the has been replaced with fluid coupling with the most automatic transmission automotive of the construction equipment that have the torque converter. The torque converter consists of the three parts of the pump, the driven member, the turbine driven member, and the stator reaction member. All curved vein structure of the located between the load and power of the surface of the source at the fulcrum, secure with the torque of the converting house. Figure 2A show the cutaway with the torque converter of the directional flow of the oil with the pump through the same direction with the pump determining the oil strength and turbine blade and force of the turbine to rotate the oil directed the torque of the center of the turbine. The oil leave with the turbine move in the direction opposite with that of the pump. The oil strength the same of the rate direction with the flow of the same direction of the pump is added. The force of that with the pump. The torque is multiplied with the velocity direction of the given oil of the pump plus the velocity of the direction of oil entering the pump to the stator. Your planetary gears. All automatic transmissions have a system of planetary gears enabling the torque with the torque converter to use efficiently. Figure 7 shows the principle of fluid drive. The power disconnected, the power connected. Figure 2H of the torque converter, turbine driving member, the pump driving member, and the stationary reaction member. Planetary unit of the heater for the automatic transmission, four parts for the makeup of the planetary gear system, the valve, the sun gear of the ring, and the internal ring of the planet and pinion of the planet carrier, the sun gear of the center of the system, the term of the planet fits of the pinion of the gears because of the rotate of the sun of the gear is shown figure 2-9 of the ring of the gear with the internal gear with the so it's called the shape of the internal teeth, the advantage of the planetary gear system compact addition with the planetary system more teeth make contact with the carrier load with the reason that each of the planetary seals system usually meshes with at least two gears because the gears are always in mesh. None of the teeth are damaged as a result of the teeth clashing in the partial mesh however the major advantage of the planetary system is that it's easy shifting gears is the ease of shifting gears. Planet gear sets are automatically transmission shifted without any special skill required by the operator. Alright, figure 2-9 shows the planetary gear system, the planetary sun gear, the planetary pinion, the planetary carrier, the planetary ring gear, the power transmitted with the planetary gear set with the various wave of the shaft of the engine connected with the driving sun with the gear that have been connected with the driving planet gear with the shaft that reconnected with the driving ring gear. The proper shell should also be connected with any of those members lower. However, the power can be transmitted to the planetary gear system only one by the engine delivering power to one of the three members of the propeller shaft connected with one of the other members. Three of the remaining members of the light head of against the rotation. Three conditions must be satisfied to power the transmission system. Automatic transmission provided with the holding of the member, the hydraulic servos, and a spring pressure. Or your automatic transmission operation. Most automatic transmissions are basically the same, but combined with the fluid torque converted with the planetary gear set controlling the shifting of the planetary gear with automatically hydraulic control system. Fluid torque converted with the automatic attack for the engine crankshaft servo the engine flywheel with design means when the engine runs with the engine power flow for the converter of the drive, the converter of the output of the turbine shaft. There's no neutral, and the torque converter of the neutral provided with the in the planetary gear set with the relief, the bands, and clutch. The transmission automatically multiplies the transmission and engages the torque with the drive shaft, drive with the command. Condition the demand with the speed with the coupling of the promoting of the gear shift the oil curve with the control partially, and the operator has only the partial control in the D drive position. We cover the transmission of the D drive position show with the planetary gear set higher gear with the prevent the engine with the overspeeding regardless. The operation automatic shaft shift the vehicle simply. However, the imperative of the professional operation learn to operate with smoothly properly. The vehicles equipped with the automatic transmission initial gear selection control with the selector lever while the drive or the shifting lever the low return to the driver to control automatically engine speed. Most vehicles have 4 or 5 following selector positions. P for park on light vehicles such as the sedans and pick up the position is look. U for the lock up the transition vehicle that cannot roll while parked, and some of the other higher vehicles with the park position does not lock up the transmission of the vehicle. The park position with the engine should start with the parking position. Neutral engine vehicle equipped with the park position or start with the neutral position and position engine for the disengage the drive shaft of the vehicle. The D the drive shaft when the shifter lever the D or the DR of the vehicle move forward to press for the accelerator with the start of the engine neutral power with the position step with the brake with the chain with the select with the D or the GR forward move with the perimeter with the forward movement with the keep the pressure for the brake while in the drive position until the ready to play for the vehicle in position while the further action operator action the transmission automatically shift to the high gears as the speed increases. Low and power position. The transmission now shifts automatically high gear with the ratio of lever than low position. Low position you with the negotiating steep grade with the rough terrain with when the parking power over the engine range is required. Low range is no longer needed with the relief the accelerator temporarily move with the shift with the left of the driven position. Normal gear progression in the driving position. Low range engaged automatically with the engine speed reduced. If the accelerator suddenly fully depressed, the low range becomes engaged. The procedure must be used that provides sudden burst of the speed of the passing. When predetermined engine speed has been attained, with the transmission automatically remains in driving position. Reverse position. Some of the shifts are left at the beginning, the reverse raised slightly to remove the R with the reverse position. Others require the pressing of the button of the end of the lever before removing the reverse. Because thoroughly familiar with the operative of the manual vehicle, the instrument control of the electric position before operating the vehicle. The piece of the equipment that you may operate the equipment that have the reverse position, extreme right on some of the shift selectors, extreme left on the other, the intermediate position on other. The force of the habit where the indifferent vehicle with the one that have been operating with the selector level with the reverse linking of the moving the director low with the driver low with the vehicle moving entirely opposite direction anticipated. Your auxiliary transmission of the rear of the regular traction transmission that's provided with the more gracious most auxiliary transmissions move only from a low and high directly range for the transfer assembly low range provided with extreme low gear ratio hard with the pull of the others are high range for the should be with the gears shifted the separate gear shaft delivered there in the drive caps figure 210. Alright. Figure 210 shows the auxiliary transmission, and power takeoff, and the winch propeller shaft. Transfer case are played from the powertrain with well-driven and all the wheels. Figure 211. Bird that provide necessary officer of the addition and propeller shaft with the connection with the drive of the wheel of the transfer cable with the heavier vehicle to have 2-speed with the position to the clutching device with deconnecting the driving the wheels. 2-speed transfer cable serve with the auxiliary transmission transfer cable quite complicated when they have speed change with the changing gear with the clutching device with the attachment. 3 or more propeller shaft they are even large for the main transmission. Some of the transfer cover the overrunning of the sprag unit, the units for the rum output shaft of the sprag unit, the overrunning of the clutch power that can be transmitted through in one direction but not the other. During the normal operation, both front and the rear wheels determine at the same speed. Only the rear wheels drive the vehicle. Figure 211 show the transfer case installed with the 4-wheel driver case. The rear differential wheel drive shaft of the transfer case, the front drive shaft, and front differential. Alright, however, the rear wheels should loosen the traction begin with the slip of the 10 with the fast with the front wheel, the curve of the spring, sprag out unit automatically engage with automatically with the front wheels to also drive the vehicle. The sprag unit supply with provide with the automatic means for the engaging front wheel to drive the more the front for more action, more traction. Power takeoff. The power takeoff of the commonly used with the PTOs are attachments, powertrain, the power drive with the auxiliary accessory attached for the auxiliary transmission, the transfer case. Common type of the power takeoffs is the single gear with a single speed with the bolted open, provided with the side of the transmission cable with the shown figure 210 with the solid gear with the power takeoff mesh with the transmission counter shaft with the operative move, the shifter shaft, the control lever, the slide with the gear in and out of the smash with the counter shaft, the gear with the spring-loaded ball with the holding the shifter and shaft position. One of the small vehicles, the power takeoff of the units have the gear arrangement, the 2-speed have forward, one with the reverse, several forward speed, the reverse gear with arrangement, you with the power takeoff of the units is equipped with the operating winches and the hoist. Alright, your propeller shaft, the assembly. The propeller shaft assembly figure 212, the consider the propeller shaft, the commonly known with the drive shaft slip joint with the 2 or more universal joints. The assembly propel pass through the wire which power with the transmission, the drive axle, auxiliary equipment, vehicle having the long wheelbase, equipped with the propeller shaft, the extend with the transmission transfer case to carry the supporting with the bearing, the proper show the extend from the center supporting bearing the rear axle, figure 213. Figure 212 show the propeller shaft, feel the yoke and spline yoke the assembled in same plane. Show the flange yoke, not the yoke plate, the unibolt, the journal, roller bearing, oil seal, snapper band, rolling bar, propeller shift, slip joint, core gasket, universal joint assembly, snapper, roller bearing, snapper, oil seal, journal, flange yoke. 213 show the propeller shaft assembled in center support bearing, the axle assembly, the universal joint, rear axle, companion flange, split yoke, split yoke, the vertical center bracket, and the transfer companion flange. Or your propeller shaft mates out with a tubular type of required little or no maintenance solid shaft, the normal with the high shaft shaft speed necessary with the UV extensively with the power auxiliary as equipment of the winches, the hydraulic pump with the hole, the shaft, the UV extensively with the transmit the power with the axle, the automatic vehicle goes on with the how with the shaft, the baby cover the rotate with the high speed with the balance, provide vibration, premature bearing failure with the transmission differential assembly, the slip joint. At one end of the propeller shaft takes for the care of the end of the driving axle, extend with the spring with the free with the moving down with the transmission, tap the frame with the cannot move with the upward downward move maneuver the axle coupled with the spring suspension spring the flag for the short action shortened the length of the distance between the axle assembly of the transmission. The slip joint makes up the change for the vertical distance. The type of the slip joint normally used for the consist of the spline stub shaft when welded on the proper propeller shaft. The fits spline shaft sleeve of the universal is shown in figure 212. Or a universal joint acts with the flexible coupling between the two shafts that permits one shaft of the drive and another shaft that is angled to the universal joint flexible send for the permanent power of the transmitted with the angled shaft of the being the continually chain. The conventional universal joint assembly is composed of three fundamental units. The journal crawler with the two yokes shown in figure 212. The two yokes are set with a right angle to each for the other with a joint one by the journal. The design permits each for the yoke the pivot with the journal line with the transmission rotary motion with the one yoke with the other. The result of the universal joint transmitting with the power of the engine shaft of the driving axle with the engine mount with the frame at the higher level of the driving axle shown in figure 213. Universal joints need a little maintenance other than lubrication with the some of the universals have the grease fitting that should be lubricated according to the manufacturer's specifications. Your center support bearings from the two or more propeller shaft together with the tandem fair alignment that maintain with the rubber bush center with the supporting the bearing, the circuit with the cross member of the frame. The typical center support bearing assembly shown in figure 214. Center bearing pre-lubricated to seal required with no further lubrication. However, some of the support bearings have to do with the lubricating fit of the first installation of the support bearing failure with the excess for the chassis, the vibration along the speed with the cup of the bearing of the turning of the shaft of the rubber support. Alright, final drive. The final drive transmits the power delivered with the propeller shaft, the drive wheel, the track, the equipment, the track laying, the equipment because they're located with the rear axle with the final drive. They're usually identified with this part of the rear axle. Some of the final drive consider the two gears can couple with the ring of the gear pinion with the bevel of the gears as they may with the warm spiral spur or the hypoid as shown in figure 215. Functions of the final drive are chained with a 90-degree direction. Power transmitted through the propeller shaft driven axles also provide the fixed reduction between the speed and the propeller shaft of the axle drive and the wheels. Alright, 214, the coupling shaft of the coupling shaft bearing and shield rubber support, retainer support and rear flange. 215, the gears used with the final drive, the worm gear, the spiral bevel gear, the spur bevel gear, and the hypo gear. Alright, carve the projection between 3 to 1 and 5 to 1 with the drive. It can be rare with the 5 to 1 as much as 11 to 1. The gear ratio of the final drive with the bevel, the gear of the front with the driving the number of the teeth driven with the ring gear, the number of the teeth of the pinion with the warm gear, final drive with the gear ratio of the front with the counting with the number of the revolution of warm gear with the one revolution driven with the gear, and the final drive with the gear with the type of the high with the differential permanent with the lower body with the permanent with the lower bevel driven pinion with the length of the body, the low center with the ring gear with the thereby lowering the propeller shaft as shown in figure 215. The warm gears are all out with the larger speed with the reduction sometimes though you with the larger trucks. Spiral gear with the bevel gears. Spiral bevel gears are some of the hypo gears, although both passenger cars and trucks were replaced with the spur gears that are too noisy. Alright, differentials. It's important that you have the powertrain with the differential with the typical final drive that is shown with the gear 216. The differential located between the axle permits one axle shaft that determines the difference between the other. At the same time, the differential transfer power with the transmission transfer case both axle shaft. The variation of axle speed, shaft speed, the necessary for the vehicle. The corner travel over the uneven edge ground. The vehicle travel around the curve of the outer wheel must travel the faster for the further than inner wheel with the differential with the rear wheel would be forced to skip with the term that made with the resulting excessive tire wear making the vehicle more difficult to control. Figure 216 is the differential operation, the ring gear, the drive shaft, the pinion gear, and the differential gears. Some trucks have the differential lock to keep the one front wheel from spinning with the simple dog clutch. Control manual automatically differential locks on one of the axle shaft. The differential case the lot below the double gear with forming the range connection between the two axle shafts, making the both wheels rotate at the same speed. Your driving axles are also classified either by live or dead. The live axle is transmit power of the dead axle, support for the part of the vehicle weight that does not drive the wheel. The wheels rotate on the end of the dead axle. On the rear wheel, drive of the passenger of the front axle, the dead axle, the rear wheel, the live axle, the front wheel, the drive vehicle. To both front and rear axles are live axles. Six-wheel drive vehicle to all three axles are live. Three axle part with the bogie drive with the joint with the free mode for the axle with the trunnion shown in the figure 217. The trunnion axle is attached rigidly to the frame. Figure 217 show the frame assembly, the propeller shaft, the rear assembly, the spring assembly, the trunnion axle, and the forward rear axle. Figure 218 show the four-wheel drive transmission, rear axle, transfer case, transmission, front axle. Alright, the purpose of the helping the distributing of the load with the rear of the vehicle with the two live with the axle with the connect with the three type of the live axle with the automotive construction equipment flow with the semi-floating, three-quarter floating, and the full floating drive wheel, the which wheels attached with the live axle driving the wheel with attached for the outside of the driving wheel to make up the dual wheels. Dual wheels are given the more track with the drive wheel to distribute the weight of the vehicle over more surface with the dual wheels, the single wheel to distributing driving the vehicles. And the number of the wheels sometimes identified as equipment, for example, the 4x2 with the could be the passenger for the car with the truck with the four wheels with the two of them driving the 4x4 with the power delivered with the train for the car with the divided the front and rear axles allow the four wheels to drive. A 6x4 truck with the wheels with the rear is identified in six wheels, four wheels in which the drive while the live axle in the front and the truck will become the 6x6 in which all six wheels drive. Six-wheel drive transmission, rear axle, front rear axle, and the transfer case, the transmission front axle. Alright, Chapter 3, Chassis Systems.